My heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Zola Levitt presents
Hi, I'm David Hart. Welcome to Zola Levitt Presents.
And I'm Kirsten Hart. Welcome to our series, Psalms of Ascent, which are the psalms or songs that were sung as the Israelites went up to Jerusalem and to the temple. Our teacher for the whole series is Jeffrey Seif.
We love him.
He's here for the whole series, and I think he's so interesting, and he keeps me captivated. Dr. Seif, we appreciate what you bring to this program.
Today begins with Psalm 128, which speaks of the blessings for those who fear the Lord. But first, let's go to Israel for a dramatic reenactment.
Blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord, that walketh in his ways. For thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands. Happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee. Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine by the sides of thine house, thy children like olive plants round about thy table. Behold, thus shall the man be blessed that feareth the Lord. Yea, thou shalt see thy children's children, and peace upon Israel.
Focus on the Family is a very famous ministry in North America, and I'd imagine the world over. One could wonder why there'd be a focus on the family psalm in what's called the Psalm of Ascent, a psalm recited by Israelites as they're making their way to and through Jerusalem on the trip of a lifetime. One would expect at one level the Psalm of Ascent to be rife with, nationalist fervor and feeling and prayers for the capital. It's interesting, Psalm 128, as a psalm of ascent, as it speaks of blessings from Jerusalem, still looks at the family. And the reason why this is correlated in my mind's eye is because in order for families to be secure and strong in a culture, in a country, there has to be a strong capital. If this gets overrun, if Jerusalem is overrun, then so much for family life. Things are thrown into disarray and decay, to put it mildly. Truth be known, if the barbarians get the better in ancient Israel, people are taken, they're slaughtered, they're sold off into slave markets. So much for happy families. But here, when they made their way to Jerusalem, they're seeking God there, and they encounter the Lord, and they sing these songs, and there are things that hit them when they do. Let me walk through some of this with you, please. In Psalm 128:1, Ashrei kol yireh Adonai. Happy is everyone that fears the Lord. And isn't that how the book of Psalms opens up in the first place? Where he says, Ashrei Haish, blessed is the man, or happy is the man. Didn't the Lord himself say, blessed are the poor, blessed are this? It's the Greek makarios, but really it comes by way of the Hebrew Ashrei, happiness. There's a kind of personal happiness. And this happiness manifests in a life that develops in a home. Thus, this happiness is available to everyone. In talking about the happiness from a good family, lovely children, enduring generations, this is something that everybody can relate to. In verse 2, we're told that someone who's blessed in the Lord, who fears the Lord, will enjoy the fruits of the labor of their hand. He says, Ashrecha v'tov lo. You will be happy and it will be well with you. And again, as I'd said earlier at the end of the day, isn't that what people want? He says in verse 3 that your wife will be a fruitful vine. And thus the dramatic vignette that you saw with the children round about. Personally, I'm right on the heels of a marriage in my own family. My eldest son's getting married, and my world is so rich with hopes for the future and so happy and wanting to see new generations emerge. I know that these impulses resonate within the psalmist. He says here in verse 4, surely thus shall the man be blessed. Did you know that God, in fact, has a blessing for you? Seems to me that the psalmist wants people to be reminded of that. And then to look at verse 5, and I want to camp there for a moment. Let me give it to you first in my version, and then we'll throw it into language you can understand. He says, Yivarechecha Adonai mitzion. May the Lord bless you from Zion. Ureh betov Yerushalayim. And see the good of Jerusalem. Kol yemei chayecha. All the days of your life. It's not just prayers for personal well-being, but as I'd said earlier, in so many ways, understandable ways, personal happiness, familial well-being is inextricably related to the overall success of the Commonwealth, of which the condition of the capital is so telling. That is, if the capital is strong, if Jerusalem is strong, it's like the dews at Mount Hermon that descend then and water everything down the mountain at the base and points north, south, east, and west. There needs to be a strong capital. This can translate in our own culture where we want to have a government in Washington, D.C. that seems to reflect the Judeo-Christian values that many of those that watch this program would subscribe to. There's a sense in which if it's God's man, if there's God's values and virtues, then there's a chance that this can disseminate roundabout in our culture. Conversely, a sense that things are going awry in the capital has effects as it trickles down out of Washington, D.C. in our world, affects socially, the kind of moral vision that's cast. There's economic concomitants to that as well as there's concerns. Goodness, if we're veering away from God in the capital, then goodness, this can be felt street level. And so here, when they make their way to and through Jerusalem for these special pilgrimages, the pilgrims give voice to Yivarechecha Adonai mitzion. May the Lord bless you from Zion, and may you see the good of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Friends, as you know, we close these programs praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Certainly, we want God's kingdom to come and His will to be done on earth here as it is in heaven. Oh, we want to see God's will done in Israel, and there's some work that needs to be done in a world that seems to be cascading out of control, but I believe that God, in fact, is going to have this word of the Lord from Jerusalem. We're going to see eventually stability in this part of the world. Till such time as that, though, it's good to know that we can see stability as God reaches into our families and strengthens and nurtures. He can do it for me. He can do it for you.
Our offer on this program, the CD I Call You Friend by Marty Goetz, a beautiful compilation of psalms set to music, peaceful, soothing. It will transport you into areas of worship that are beyond your expectations. We're honored to have Marty with us during this special series of programs on the Book of Psalms, and we know that you'll find this CD to be a blessing. Call 1-800-WONDERS and ask for Marty Goetz CD, I Call You Friend.
Called Psalms of Ascent. Ascent comes from a word meaning to go up. Transcend means to cross over and go up. Help us to cross coast to coast. Television isn't cheap. We don't want to just ascend, we want to transcend. We got a great message. We need your help in telling it. Please be gracious and make a kind donation to Zola Levitt Ministries.
We just want to say thank you so much for your continued support, which allows us to bring you series just like this one. Now let's go to Psalm 129, which is the Psalm of Protection. Let's go to Israel now.
Bullying has been around forever. Repairing a fishing net is hard enough without hecklers pestering you, mocking you. This is a picture of Israel, bullied and ridiculed by nations that seek her demise. Many a time have they afflicted me from my youth, says the psalmist, yet they have not prevailed against me. The Lord is righteous. He hath cut asunder the cords of the wicked. Let them all be confounded and turned back that hate Zion.
Bullies have been around for a long, long time. Many a boy and girl have been vexed by bullies and felt the need to stand up and say, enough already. Might have been the case with you or someone within your family. Certainly within the Jewish family, we have felt the need to stand up and say, enough already. Anyone who has read the Bible, and for me, the Bible, among other things, is the Jewish family diary. It tells lots of stories of people assailing against the Jews, and the Jews standing up. Speaking of standing up, I am standing up in a place right now that's remembered in Israel as a place where people take a stand and make a stand. It's Latrun. It's a museum that commemorates the armored divisions in the Israeli Defense Forces. And here there's a story that seems to tell it all, doesn't it? Brave men out from the armor, jumping down, ready to engage, whether it's engaging individuals from within the tank or stepping out and engaging outside. The point is sometimes we need to engage. It's a scary business. It's an unpleasant business. My son Zachary once quoted Shakespeare when we were talking about the need for men to stand up. And he looked at me, and I was never prouder than when Zach said, Dad, you know, Shakespeare said, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but the valiant die only once. It was Shakespeare's way, of course, of giving voice to the need for courage and persistence. I don't get on television to talk about Shakespeare. I have another author to refer to in Psalm chapter 129. That's a little closer to home to what I'm all about. In Psalm chapter 129, the psalmist talks about how the enemies keep coming and coming and coming, and it's like it doesn't stop. It's perennial. But there's a statement here in Psalm 129, verse 2. I want to give it to you in Hebrew and then in English. In Hebrew, Gam lo yoklu li, but they have not prevailed against me. Before that, many times in my youth they've come and this and that, but they have not prevailed against me. Let's do a whirlwind tour of the Bible, not to cover every subject in 4 minutes, but you know the story. There was a time when the Israelites were bested by the Egyptians. Very, very unfair, in the clutches of Paro Melech Mitzrayim, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And you know what happened? A great miracle. God sent Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, and the children of Israel were delivered from Egypt. Esther, of course, is a story in the Hebrew Bible about a woman who was well placed for such a time as this. And what was the time? Well, there in the Persian realm, there was a fellow Haman who was hell-bent on destroying the Jews. In fact, it could have happened. She interceded, and the Jews were afforded the opportunity to make a spirited defense. And Jews did, and the net result is that God gave us favor. Oh, it's a joy to celebrate Purim in a Jewish home, in a Jewish synagogue, here in the Jewish homeland, to see all the joy that goes along with the holiday. It's something to behold. Purim is one example. Passover, or the Egyptian debacle, is another. God delivered us from that. The story of Hanukkah is celebrated in the Jewish world when the Syrians were bent on destroying the Jewish people. Nesh Gadol HaYashem, a great miracle happened there. The story is played out in the intertestamental period between the Old and the New Testaments, that is, and it tells of a time when Antiochus Epiphanes ran over the Jewish people and endeavored to destroy us. But you know what happened? People stood up and made a spirited defense. It seems that in every generation, or in many generations, God calls Jewish people to stand up. And that is why I love the expression in the Hebrew Bible, Gam lo yoklu li, they have not prevailed against us. Standing up, contending. You know, I think sometimes we just are a little too comfortable and we, prefer life that's easy. You can find a church where the reverend says, just sit your tuchus here in the pew and everything's going to be good for you. It's overly simplistic. Or a reverend can say, just, read this book and say this prayer this way and then the trials are going to evaporate. It doesn't always go away quick. It doesn't always go away easy. Coming from Latroon, I want to tell you, however, that if you've got God on your side, you are going to be able to say, like the psalmist said, Gam lo yoklu li, they have not prevailed against me.
I have to admit that I think sometimes we forget or take for granted how great we have it here in America compared to other places in the world.
That's true, and no matter where you live, know that God is there to protect you. The Bible says, call upon the name of the Lord, He will be there and He will be faithful to protect His people.
That's right. Faithfulness is another name for God. Let's go to our Hebrew lesson now.
Shalom Chaverim. We're here in the city of Jerusalem talking about the names of God. One of the names that I love is Adonai Tzuri, God my rock. Tzuri comes from the word tzur, which means a big rock, kind of like Yosemite in Yellowstone, that kind of big rock. Adonai Tzuri. When I stand on that rock in my life, in my prayer, in my exaltation, nothing can move me, nothing can attack me or touch my life when I stand on that tzur, on the rock that is God. The Bible also mentions God in this name, Tzur Israel, which means the rock of Israel. And how many of us know that God is a keeper of His promises? He keeps Israel on that rock, on that solid foundation. So this week, as we pray and we worship, we can say, God, you are my rock. I shall not be moved. Adonai Tzuri.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We love her teaching each week. So are you ready to do this word with us? Let's try it.
Adonai Tzuri. He's our rock.
That's right.
He's faithful.
Yes, our faithful rock.
That's a good word today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Our offer on this program, the CD I Call You Friend by Marty Goetz. A beautiful compilation of psalms set to music. Peaceful, soothing. It will transport you into areas of worship that are beyond your expectations. We're honored to have Marty with us during this special series of programs on the Book of Psalms, and we know that you'll find this CD to be a blessing. Call 1-800-WONDERS and ask for Marty Goetz CD, I Call You Friend.
Zola Levitt Presents is more than just a television program. There are many ways to connect with us on social media. Join Zola Levitt Presents on Facebook/Zola Levitt to watch this week's episode. Or join us on Twitter at Zola Levitt. Or watch videos on our YouTube channel, Zola Levitt Presents. And don't forget to find everything on our website, levitt.com. We invite you to keep in touch and join us on social media.
Sha'alu shalom Yerushalayim, Sha'alu shalom shalom, in the holy city of Jerusalem. We will pray for peace, Shalom shalom.
You hear us weekly talk about our Israel tours, how great they are, and we would absolutely love for you to join us on a tour to Israel and Greece. The buses are comfortable. The hotels that we stay in are amazing. The food is great, and our Messianic teachers are just the best. We would love for you to join us. You can find all the information on levitt.com. We asked Chaim recently about his family life in Israel. Let's go to Chaim now.
The family unit is different here than in other countries. Some countries have to wait an entire year to see their family. We see them every Shabbat. Shabbat is really the core, but the whole of this country is called a familic core structure. Think of every holiday Israel has. Think of how on Passover we all come together and the children ask the questions. Think of how on Tabernacles even the stranger is welcomed in and treated as family. It is so important that we all know that we each have a role. You know, the kibbutz structure is everyone playing their roles. We all get to use the cars in a kibbutz structure. And, you know, that's what we are a part of. We're all part of the family of God. We're all part of the team-building exercise of restoration that God has for us. Thank you for playing your family role.
Thank you, Chaim Mailspin. We are honored to call you our friend. And viewers, I want you to know that Chaim Mailspin in person is just as genuine and energetic as he appears on camera. We are so thrilled that he is part of our team. Now let's go to Akko in northern Israel, where Eitan Shishkov is waiting for us.
Shalom, I'm Eitan Shishkov, and I want to welcome you to Israel. Behind me is quite a historic portion of Israel. It's the town of Akko that dates back 5,000 years. Currently, you're looking at the old city portion. Akko's a fascinating town. It has both Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis. And in the first century, it was a stopover point for the Apostle Paul. In Acts chapter 21, we read about the town. Then it was called Ptolemais in Greek. And apparently there was a Messianic Jewish group there, at least a house group. Well, today we're seeing a repeat in the 21st century of what happened in the first century, and that is that Messianic Jewish Hebrew-speaking congregations are being planted around Israel. And some 5 years ago, we had the privilege of planting and sponsoring a congregation here in Akko. It's led by a young man named Guy Cohen, who is a native Israeli who grew up in the town of Akko. And so his testimony, also as a man who was a part of a Orthodox Jewish education for some years, has a great deal of credibility. And I want to say that part of what God is doing in Israel today is raising up young leaders. I find myself, as a man not born in Israel, but came here 18 years ago as an immigrant, in the position to be able to train and mentor, father and coach these young men and women, and it's the most fulfilling thing that I could possibly be doing. We're releasing these young leaders to plant fresh congregations and to move into the society in areas of education, law, business, and we see that this is the way that the Messiah is going to be working in this time in Israel. The concept of planting congregations and of spreading out is one that, of course, is common in the book of Acts, where the first Messianic Jewish messengers gathered together. For instance, in Acts chapter 13, they sought the Lord, they prayed, and the Holy Spirit spoke to them and said, I want Paul and Barnabas to go out. I have work for them to do. And they spread out into the Mediterranean world of that day. This is really the spirit of the original Messianic Jewish community, and we're thrilled to be able to walk in their footsteps now in the 21st century. We invite you to join us through prayer and participation to be a part of this tremendous renewal and restoration of what the Lord did some 2,000 years ago.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me by the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Psalm 23 is really one of my favorite scriptures, and I'm sure it's familiar to you too. Marty, thank you so much for bringing us God's message through the Psalms today.
Psalm 129, starting at verse 1, says, "Many a time they have afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, many a time they have afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me." That's a good word today. The Lord is our rock and our salvation.
A great way to end our program today. Sha'alu Shalom, Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter, is free and full of insightful articles and news commentary from a messianic perspective. Visit levitt.com to find our newsletter, along with current and past programs, our television schedule, and much more.
Don't forget to order this week's resource by calling 1-800-WONDERS, or you can purchase it from our store at levitt.com.
Your donations to Zola Levitt Ministries help these organizations bless Israel.
Thanks again for joining us this week. Zola Levitt Ministries and this television program depend on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you.
This has been a paid program brought to you by Zola Levitt Ministries.